From the world of AV control and programming with James King, I'm Steve Greenblatt, and this is Ask the Programmer. Hey, James, I'm glad we're able to share another programming related topic and continue the conversations with our audience. How are you today?
I'm good, Steve. Look forward to this topic as always. I definitely think this is going to be a tough one, I think, because it's a important topic, but it's definitely a tough one.
So, I think we've probably been on a little bit of a stretch of those because, we handled a lot of the softballs in our conversations. So we're starting to get into some of the meat and potatoes and maybe some of the conversations that people don't always want to have. But I think that these are important. And maybe this one is going to be relatable, not just to programmers and those that are writing code, but also those who are supervising programmers. So we're going to talk about how to manage programmers, and it's not just, I think, managing a programmer. It could also be managing a programming team, and what are some things that work, what don't work, and what are the tips that we can provide from our experiences. I have a programming team that I can share a bit about, and I know that you work both for someone and with people, so you could probably share it from both perspectives. But without getting too deep, let's just start to talk about just a programmer's makeup. A lot of programmers are kind of independent, quiet people. They like to kind of be on their own and do their thing and not be bothered, and that's how they focus and they do their best work. And that may or may not be the easiest thing to manage. What's your experience been, and what do you find has worked and not worked?
So off the top, full disclosure, I am not in a manager position. I'm actually the only real programmer for AV on our staff. There was a guy I was kind of mentoring and trying to help get to take some of the programming off on our team, but due to structural change within our department, he no longer reports within the same team I am on. He's on a different team. So I kind of lost that, but I can talk from the short live I had with that, and from being on the side of, being managed by a supervisor. And you can't force them. As we said, programmers are a very special breed. We are to ourselves, work on our computers, hunched over, writing code for the most part. That's your typical what you see programmer. So it's hard to manage those. You can't manage a programmer like you would an installer. You can't, like an installer, you can say, okay, your DSPs are going to be your, I don't know, I'm just spitballing here, near the top of the rack. Your amplifiers are going to be on the bottom rack. You can tell an installer to do that. There's no flair to rack building per se. Some people do it, but programming is an art. Everyone has their ways of doing it. And if I come here and say, okay, Johnny, you need to, let's see, a big one in software development is the brackets. Do they go right after the if and then go down, or are they on a line themselves? I know that's a hot topic in programming. Like me personally, I'm the one who, I like the bracket underneath, like if it's a function or an if right underneath, line on its own, or others like it right in the same line underneath. So I can't sit there and say, okay, Johnny, you got to do it this way, because Johnny's way is not wrong.
And I think that's probably epitomizes or is a good example of a lot of the aspects of managing people in general is you have to let them be individuals. And, as much as you want people to be a certain way, everybody is different and everybody has a different makeup. Um, and being able to understand people's strengths and weaknesses and not knowing and understand knowing how to put them to best use is, I think a lot of those are common management skills in general. One of the things that I've found when managing programmers is getting them to understand that bigger picture. So, you have, like, yes, we want to write a program that works, and yes, we want to make the system achieve its highest potential and have a wow factor for a client. And that may be very important to one type of a programmer, and another type of programmer, they may just want to get the project done as quickly as possible and just make it work and move on to the next thing. Those are two different styles. The key is as we've talked about before, is understanding the goal. What are the parameters for the project? And what is it that what was the agreed upon expectation here, and getting a programmer to understand that, because it a lot, sometimes they can get lost in their own world in that regard and not necessarily see that bigger picture, and understand what they do also has to fit into a model for an organization that has to be a healthy and functioning organization that needs to be either profitable or make best use of its resources.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I know what was 2 weeks ago, we talked about the scope of work, and that's kind of what you were talking about there, is making sure that your programmer understands, not just knows about it, but understands the scope of work, making sure they're not getting lost in their own world, but meeting the expectation of the user of the system. And definitely got to be a hard one there to balance, because I know I've gone down the rabbit hole with programming systems, and I'm like, wow, look what we can do. And then I think maybe those features are used maybe 1% of the time.
Or you sit down with one particular user, and you really get into the groove because they want you to do something really cool, and can you add this and can you do that, and it's just a matter of saying, oh, I'm making this person happy and look what I can do. And it's and that's very rewarding, and I don't want to take that away from anybody, because I don't think that any programmer wants to feel like they're on an assembly line. Most people do this because of the satisfaction of the outcome, and being able to do something a little different, or being able to stretch their capabilities, or show their strengths and skills. So keep making it too routine is not probably going to keep a programmer's interest.
Yes. I also find programmers are very I'm trying to say artsy almost in the way they do things. And we do know artsy people, they need to be creative. You cannot put them in a box and say you're doing X, Y, and Z, because they don't you don't get the best work from them in that environment. But in the end, it's still a business. You still got a job to get done. You still got a project to get done. So you got to keep them on task. So you got to balance that, allowing them to express their creativity, but also getting the job done and moving along the process, where they're not just, throwing the bells and whistles in because the user is happy with them, because sooner or later the user's not going to be happy when they don't have their project, or their project is 10 times the cost.
And then also, if somebody has provided a solution that one person really likes, that doesn't mean that it's the best for everybody. So all of those things can be a challenge. Um, one of the things that I believe in is not only treating everybody individually, but also uh, being able to play into strengths and giving somebody the ability to learn and grow from learning from each other. Um, and I think that's one of the benefits you get in a programming team, and that's part of what we've discussed. Ask the Programmer should be about. So for those of you out there who are in a situation where you are struggling with either knowing how to manage or being managed, that this is a great opportunity for to be able to find some community and discuss how we can make that better. Not I think the ability to learn from each other too, and have giving a programmer some opportunity to grow is an important part of managing them, because I don't think anybody is not many people like a stagnant role.
Yeah, I agree there. So how, knowing that programmers are unique bees and need to flex their creative muscle, how do you go about keeping them on task, but still doing that work that needs to be done, or like allowing them the freedom, but keep them focused? That I think is definitely a question I think a lot of managers are facing.
So for me, if I could speak from experience a little bit, is that one, you try, if you can, to vary projects a little bit. So here's your routine project, and here's your interesting project, or here's your project that we're giving you the opportunity to learn, and you're going to work with this other person, let's say. Or we also try to bake in a little bit of development time in somebody's schedule. So kind of similar to the Google model, when you have a little bit of downtime, have a list of things that you're interested in, and spend your time learning those things, and report back to the team what you've learned and how we may be able to include it or adapt it in some of the things that we offer. So I think all of that is something that I think can be appealing, because the variety, I think, for most people is important. The repetitive work, I don't think, goes very far, because you're going to lose focus, as you mentioned. It's not that you probably will have a decline in quality for if the work is too easy, if you think about it.
Yeah, I can see that, because if it becomes too easy, comes too stagnant, then the quality of the work is definitely going to suffer, because they're not putting their all into it. So that makes a good point there.
The other thing that I'm a big proponent on too is just understanding people's personalities too, what makes them tick. And I've talked a little bit about this probably in the past episodes, and certainly in the industry, but I'm a big believer in understanding somebody's makeup, and that knowing how they're wired, so you know how to work with each person, and what appeals to them, what they're good at, and what their fears and frustrations are. So if you have the opportunity, and this could be for somebody who's on a team or somebody who is even working independently, try to find ways to be able to engage with other people and learn from them, but also be able to see what are some of those soft skills that you can also continue to grow. So we've talked about organization and communication, and the idea of time management. All those things make a programmer more effective, and how can, as a manager, how can you help your team grow in those areas that are not necessarily technical areas.
I agree. As I'm a big component of always learning. I use that a lot in hashtags on Twitter and stuff. Always be learning, and not just the skills you're on, but the soft skills. Learning leadership, learning interpersonal communication. All that stuff is vital to daily job. So programmers need it, and sometimes I think they need a little more of it because a lot of programmers are kind of antisocial. They're the loners who want to sit at their keyboard and type away, and give me a cup of coffee, give me a bag of chips, and leave me alone type people.
And honestly, sometimes they need to be pushed out of their comfort zone and be in those situations that they hate in order to grow and expand. And I'm sure that people are that if we haven't said enough already to elicit feedback, that's probably one of them that is going to make some people cringe. But we would like to hear what you think about this topic, and if this is helpful, whether you're in a management role or being managed or looking to find the right environment so that you can thrive. I think that it's an important part of our daily being, and we talk a lot about the technical side of what we do, but this is also a critical component. Any final words on this, James, and how can people reach you and continue the conversation?
No final words, but you can always reach me at AV_James King on Twitter, James King on LinkedIn. You can find me on the Higher Ed Digital Magazine, writing for the IT and AV column, and as well as weekly podcasts. And as Steve said, we want to hear from our listeners. That's what helps this community grow.
Absolutely. I hope that we will also find the opportunity to meet a lot of you, whether it's at an event or whether you can join us on a conversation on Twitter and perhaps join us on a future episode. So please reach out. And it's something that we're interested in expanding how we do this and making sure that we continue to serve the community. So for me, you can reach me at Steve Greenblatt on most social platforms. Twitter and LinkedIn are probably where I most frequent. And you can read some of my writing for AV technology at avnetwork.com or my company blog at controlconcepts.net. Until next time, this has been Ask the Programmer.